Well, hello and welcome to another edition of Fat Hobbit. So it's been a couple of weeks since I last posted a video, mainly down to the fact that I've just been working and getting used to the hours, and they're all over the place at the moment, so it's just trying to get used to that so that I can actually post some more videos. But in the meantime, I've been sorting out my army list, and the great thing about that is that I've had a good amount of time to play around with looking at forums and tournament forums and Empire forums, and that's meant that I've been able to look at what other people do and come up with my own army as well, my own ideas. One of the big things that I wanted to do is I wanted to make it a characterful army, but at the same time, as I said in my previous video, I want to try and make it competitive as well. And so I came up with an idea of having a bit of a sellsword army, an army that's more sort of mercenary, but at the same time has a mixture of the true Empire army in it as well. So it's got some interesting characterizations that I'm coming up with at the moment. So what I'm going to do today, in today's video, is I've built the army and I've also started to paint it as well. And that means that I'm going to show you guys what I've been adding into the army and why I've added that into the army as well, and just to sort of get some ideas across to you as to why I've chosen those units. And also, as again, at the end of the video, if you want to leave some comments about the army list, about certain aspects of it and what you do differently, then again, that would be really helpful as well for me, especially with building up an army that I want to take to a tournament. So if there's anything in the army that you see that you think I could tweak, you think I could change, that you think I should take out and replace with something else, then please by all means leave me some comments. So without further ado, let's get on with the first unit. So we're going to start off with the core unit of the army. So let's get on with that. So here they are, the core unit for my army, which is a unit of 39 halberdiers with full command. And what I've added in is something that you can quite obviously see on a pillar there in the middle. Is a bit of a unit filler to add a bit more character to the unit as well. This is mainly a statue of their leader, which is yet to be named, and it's basically a sort of tribute to him in terms of their own banner. It's kind of like with the Bretonians, with the fact that they carry around banners with tributes and heraldry, and that's basically the same sort of thing. Now they've also got a little bit of a funky extra, which Empire, I really like the idea of this. Empire have got part of their army which is called detachments, which allows them to take units that have the detachment special rule in their army book as extra parts of their unit, so that they have your main block of halberdiers, but then I've also taken one unit of 5 archers and another unit of 5 archers. Now, the whole point of these guys is pretty much they are bait. They are cannon fodder. I basically run those straight up towards anything that I don't really want to get straight into hand-to-hand combat with, or that I just want to kind of divert in the wrong direction. And I sit them out there and I either beg them to charge my archers, or they have to try and maneuver around them. So the great thing with these guys is that they still form part of my core choice. They don't have to be a legal unit size, which is the great thing about them, as long as they've got at least 5 models in the unit, which is why I take the 2 units of 5 archers. So I suppose the whole point of why I've taken these guys is the unit of 39 halberdiers is mainly to help fill out the basic part of my core choice, but they're also, in my opinion, out of the infantry that the Empire have, are probably the best part of the core infantry. Mainly because of the fact that, okay, yes, they're not very survivable, but none of the Empire basic troops really are, bar swordsmen, who do at least have shields so they can parry in combat. But the main weakness of any Empire soldier is being strength 3 and being toughness 3, and not really being a very high weapon skill means you don't really get to hit very much, and when you do hit, you're not really going to wound it very easily anyway. And even if you do wound it, there's no minuses to your opponent's armor save whatsoever, so they just sit there going, huh, no armor save, I'll just make my normal armor save then, that's fine. Whereas these guys get +1 to their strength in combat, so they're strength 4. So the benefit to that means at least I'm giving them a -1 to their armor save, so they've got to be a little bit more cautious about going straight into hand-to-hand combat with them. Other than that, they're pretty much there to be the big block for my army to sort of sit in the middle of, to be, I suppose, the sort of anvil of the army, to just sort of sit there and hopefully absorb some stuff. They're not really going to last a huge amount of time, but if I can get into combat with someone and do enough damage to them, maybe I can hold them up, slow them up long enough for the rest of my army to deal with stuff. So, the first of my units is a core unit of halberdiers. Also, I've done something a bit funky with this as well. I've done a little bit of freehand with the banner as well, which I'm just going to show you now. So, I got the picture of this from the Empire heraldry book, and it's an hourglass, and it's going to hopefully form part of a large amount of imagery from my army as well. Because they're sellswords, they basically sell their time and their swords to anyone who can bid for them. So the whole poignancy of the hourglass is literally there to go, you know, you've got us for a set amount of time, and that time is running out. And hopefully the hourglass will signify that throughout the army and give a bit of a link to the actual background to the army as well. So that's the core choice. 39 halberdiers with 2 detachments of 5 archers. So next up, my second core choice. So next up is second part of my core choice. I've gone for a unit of 5 inner circle knights, and these literally just make up the extra part of my core choice, because you have to have at least 25% of your army as core, and these guys just make up those extra points. They're mostly designed to be a flanking force, so they're designed to go around the outside and just hit into the side of things. If there's not so much a role for them in flanking, then they'll also be used to hunt war machines or skirmishing units, or just fast moving units that hopefully I'll be able to catch with my knights. I've chosen to make them into Knights Panther, as there's a lot of knight sets out there, and people always tend to do sort of the same thing, and I've really loved the iconography and the sort of imagery of Knights Panther, and I've never really seen them done as a whole unit. I've seen, you know, obviously parts of a unit done as Knights Panther, and they do have an upgrade part to the knight set that gives them cloaks. So what I wanted to do that was a bit different was not just to give them cloaks, but to give them an actual proper panther skin, as if they're wearing a fur of panthers. So I used the White Lions box set from the High Elf range, and used the White Lion cloaks to make a proper cloak of with claws and all the furs, and even panther heads on them as well. And with that, I wrapped it round, used green stuff to fill in the gaps, to fill in the fur, and then painted it up to look like an actual panther skin. So as an example, there's one that I've done earlier, so to speak, and literally done all the markings on there. It's literally still got the tail on there as well. And so hopefully that puts across the imagery that they are, you know, proper Knights Panther. They've gone out, they've got these furs, they've killed the, you know, the savage beast of the wild, and used that to wrap around their armour to signify that they are an inner circle Knights Panther, that they've gone through these trials. As you can see, these guys are nowhere near painted at all yet, unlike my halberdier unit, which was mostly finished. These guys have still yet to have not just their paint job done, but also on the back of their movement tray, I want to add something a little bit more scenic as well, to make it look like they're actually riding through not just a battlefield, but a built-up battlefield, which will explain some other things as well later on. So hopefully those guys will get finished over the next few weeks, and I'll be able to show you them more in their more completion later on. So as I said, that's my second core choice, my Knights Panther of the Inner Circle. Again, comments on these guys would be really helpful as well. Thanks. So, next up on my army list is a unit of 5 Demogryph Knights. Now, one of the big things that I found during the other Throne of Skulls that I've been to, especially the last one that I've just been to, is that pretty much every Empire army I saw had these guys in it. And with reading through their rules and with looking at the actual unit itself, I can see why. These guys have a 1+ armor save. They're toughness 4, they've got 3 wounds, and the demogryphs themselves, the mounts, are strength 5 armor piercing. So a -3 to people's armor saves, and the fact that they're also monstrous cavalry, so they stomp, makes them absolutely awesome. I mean, come on, why would you not want them? Apart from the fact, you know, they might be giant chocobos. Then the guys on top, they're strength 4 basic, so they're half decent in a combat, they can whack a fair punch, and I've given them lances as well. You know, the invisible riders. And when they charge in, strength 6, can't really moan about that, and the fact that they're going to dish out a fair amount of pain to anything I charge into. These guys are one of my main fighting forces in my army. They can put out a lot of attacks, as I said, and if they hit into the right unit, they can rip stuff to pieces and hopefully break them on the charge. So the whole point with these guys is literally to charge in, hopefully break the unit that they charge into, and then overrun through them. Maybe even in support of the halberdiers, to go into either the side or into the rear, to hopefully try and break any unit the halberdiers are in combat with as well. So these guys, as I said, they're part of my special choice as well, so they form the main fighting force, especially with the amount of hits and stuff they can put out. So that's the demogryphs. Again, if you think that's the right unit or the wrong unit, why not comment on my posts and let me know what you think. So in terms of my units, the last 2 units that I actually have in my army are these 2 bad boys. Yeah, 2 steam tanks. It may seem a little bit excessive, but with the way that I work my army, which hopefully you'll hear when I do my characters, these guys are literally the hard-hitting power of the army. They're going to go in, they're going to hopefully rip through most things. They've also got a cannon on each one, so a strength 10 cannon, so I can get rid of things like monstrous creatures, hydras, hell pit abominations, anything like that that I really need to get rid of in one hit. These guys will get the job done. They whack a fair punch as well. They class as a chariot now, so they don't automatically fail the characteristic tests like they used to with War Machine special rules. And when they do pop in, they do impact hits just like a normal chariot would, so d6 hits. But then for each steam point that they use when they go in, they get an extra d3 impact hits as well. And the way a steam tank works is you generate your steam points at the start of your turn. So it could be, you know, you could just go for 1 and, you know, just use that 1 steam point to fire the cannon or whatever you want it might be. Or you can go up to a maximum of 5. And if you go up to a maximum of 5, then you can get a fair amount of oomph out of a steam tank. 3 steam points into the steam engine, for example, gives it 3d6-inch movement, which is fairly useful. 18-inch maximum move, and if it does hit into the unit, it gets those extra steam points to use as impact hits as well as the normal d6. The steam cannon again increases in range by 12 inches each time you put a steam point into it, up to a maximum of 3. So it goes 12, 24 and 36-inch range for the cannon. And it even has a breath weapon attack that it gets to use from the steam gun on top. So it's fairly good at taking out pretty much anything that your opponent's going to have. It's got a cannon for large stuff, it's got impact hits for any form of unit it charges into, and it's got a flame weapon as well for when it wants to hit some massed ranked up infantry as well. The other good thing as well, they are also a 1+ armor save. So when it comes down to it, these guys are survivable as well. And being unbreakable means they're just going to sit in and churn through units. That is as long as they don't blow themselves up, which can happen and has happened to me a few times in practice games. So these guys are part of the main core of my army, as well as the demogryphs as well. So again, they're fun, They're hard hitting, but they could blow up. Not so good. But again, if you guys think these are the right things to take in my list, comment on there as well. So finally, we have the lineup of heroes and lords that are going to lead my army. These guys are going to be the forefront of leading my army, keeping my army in the fight, and pretty much buffing them or taking away from my opponent. First of all, I start off with my Archlector. So this bad boy, he can put out some prayers, which are fairly useful. A 5-up ward save in combat for himself and any unit he joins. Rerolls to wound in combat for, again, himself and any unit he joins. He can also give them flaming attacks, and Soul Blight also allows him to hit anyone in base contact with him as well with a strength 4 hit, which is always nice. Strength 5 if it's undead or demon. So pretty funky. And he gives the unit hatred as well. Again, very useful, especially with the Empire's low weapon skill. Being able to re-roll your missed hits means that I'm going to get a lot more hits from that halberdier unit that he's probably going to end up sitting in. And with the possibility of getting a reroll to wound as well, or even a 5+ ward save in combat, means they're going to be able to dish out wounds, they're going to be able to be survivable, and hopefully be able to break a unit or at least hold in combat against a unit. So he is also my army general. He's an Archlector, which means he's leadership 9, and with 2 hand weapons as well. I'm probably going to end up giving him some magical weapons and some magical armour as well to keep him in the fight. Next up is my Captain Battle Standard Bearer. Now he's fairly uber. Again, he is part of the strategy to keep the halberdiers in the fight. With the special rule that allows him to, when taking break tests, roll 3d6 and take away the highest dice. And re-rolling that means they've got a much higher chance with their leadership of 9 being able to stay in the fight and continue fighting. And with the size of the unit, there's a high chance as well that they're probably going to be steadfast. Which means rolling on a leadership of 9 with 3 dice taking away the highest number and re-rolling that means they're most likely going to stay in the fight all the time. Hopefully, also going to be giving him the Griffin banner, so they're even going to have extra pluses for combat resolution to hopefully win the fight in the first place, so they don't even have to take that fight and take that test. Next up, we have my wizard. He's a battle wizard lord. So the great thing about Empire is that their heroes and lords are fairly cheap, which means when it comes down to it, I can take a lot of characters that will give me a lot of benefits. And this one in particular is going to be very useful for me. He's got a level 4, he's Law of Life as well. So the benefit with this is that being level 4 means that I can pretty much guarantee the spells that I want to get during a game. One of which is going to be Regrowth. The reason for Regrowth is that they've recently, in an FAQ that they've put into the Games Workshop's gaming errata and frequently asked questions, they've changed the way that Regrowth words. So it used to be that you would get back D3 plus 1 amount of models back into your unit, which was great for things like halberdiers, which means I could get extra models back into that unit, or for massed infantry blocks, so you could bring back even more guys. Even with cavalry, you could bring back cavalry as well. But they've changed it, and the wording now is that rather than just bringing back models, you can bring back wounds. It's just wounds. So it means that not only can I bring back models, but I can also heal things like steam tanks. So it means that I can do regrowth on my steam tanks, so even if you wound them, I can put them back up to their full amount of wounds and keep them in the fight even longer. Dirty. Dirty, dirty, dirty. And Law of Life is an awesome spell lore. I mean, you've got I'll probably go through it a bit more in depth later on in another video, but you've got buffs in there that increases toughness, you've got things in there that force things to take strength tests, And regrowth obviously is an awesome one, and there's loads of other little bits and pieces in there that really will help to aid my army in staying in the fight for longer and grinding out a victory. And last but not least is my captain on Pegasus. So this guy mostly is designed for running straight out towards my opponent's army, picking on some smaller units, holding up some bigger ones, charging in the flank, charging in the rear, and basically just making a god-awful nuisance of himself. So the great thing with him is that he gives me a bit more flexibility, especially with flying out to meet smaller skirmishing units or single individual hounds, especially like saber tusks, that are just going to annoy the crap out of me. And this way, this guy now allows me to intercept those threats before they even get in there. And if I'm feeling particularly brave, if they've got things like Mournfang or heavy cavalry or monstrous cavalry, if I can charge him into the side of it or into the rear of it, it'll hold them up for a little while to allow me to get other things in there to deal with them. So that is pretty much my army as it stands. So again, these are the characters that will be leading the army. You've already seen all the other bits as well. So that pretty much concludes this video of my army. Now I'm hoping that this week I'll also be able to put on a battle report army as well, so that I'll be able to show you that video as well, so I can show you how my one of my test games went, and I'll hopefully be posting that up in the near future. The other one I want to hopefully do as well over the next couple of weeks is also do a painting one, a painting video for how I paint my halberdiers, as they're pretty much finished, but I have about one more left to paint. So I want to do a bit of a painting video on that to show you how I go through the process of painting my models up. And then when I'm painting up my Knights Panther and my other bits as well, hopefully do a bit more for you there as well. I've also got some movement trays to make up, so what I'm also going to do as well is I'm going to do a movement tray masterclass on how to do skirmish bases. So if you guys want to stay tuned for that as well, that'll hopefully be on in the next few weeks, as I make a skirmish base for my other unit of archers. So, as always, please, any comments, leave at the bottom. If you want to subscribe to my my blog, then please do so below as well. And any questions you want to put on there, feel free to do that as well. Like this one, also check out my other video as well if you haven't already watched it. And happy listening, guys. See you for now.